Welcome to Eagle Communications Channel 2. This is the show Abilene Means Business, the show of the Abilene Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm your host, James Holland, the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you to the show. Today my guest is Ted Pugh. Ted is the Vice President at Dickinson County Bank here in Enterprise. It is the Abilene Area Chamber of Commerce, and Enterprise is certainly a city that we're all very familiar with, and it's glad to have you at the show.
Thanks for having me, James.
Yep, absolutely, no problem. And Ted's going to tell us a little bit. They're actually a new member of the chamber as of a few months ago. He's going to talk a little bit about the bank and about Enterprise and some of the things that go on here as far as business is concerned here in Enterprise. So let's go ahead and start with the bank. Tell us a little bit about the illustrious history of the bank here.
Well, it's an old bank. Back in 1894, there was a financial panic locally, and the old Enterprise State Bank, which is located just up the street where the buggy stop's at now,
right.
Enterprise State Bank was forced to close, and 2 weeks later, a group of local businessmen got together and decided, hey, we still need a bank for this community to be solvent. We need a bank to have our money at and to borrow from. And so, led by Christian Hoffman, they got together and organized the Dickinson County Bank. And, 121 years later, we still kind of hold the same philosophy. I think a small town such as Enterprise need a good local bank who they can borrow money from, who can keep their deposits with. And they seem to go hand in hand. Strong communities have strong banks, and that's what we want to continue to be.
Yep. And a little trivia tidbit about Dickinson County Bank. It's the oldest bank in Dickinson County, right? Under the current charter.
Absolutely.
So it's the same charter since, and nothing has changed really as far as
right.
that's concerned.
And today's banking landscapes, it's kind of interesting. Kansas is, as soon as 10 years ago, had over 500 banks that were chartered in the state. I just looked it up the other day, we're down to 267. And so you can see the trend. These small banks are consolidating, they're going away, they're getting bought by bigger banks.
Yeah.
And so that's just kind of disheartening, but we still intend to operate it just as a locally owned, family-run business. We actually are stubborn enough that we want to be here 121 more years in the future. So, and as banks consolidate and get bigger, we're kind of the opposite. We want to be your community bank.
Sure, absolutely. And there's probably some advantages and disadvantages to that. Share the advantages of having a much smaller institution that you bank with.
Sure. If at much larger banks, a lot of the times you have to go in and if you want to borrow money, you talk to somebody and you fill out an application, and it goes to a corporate office in a bigger city. It sits on somebody's desk who doesn't have a direct relationship with the applicant.
Right.
And they look at it, and so the decisions are usually made by people other than those that you directly deal with. And so, what's different about Dickinson County Bank is somebody comes in off the street, they go into my office, they want to apply for a loan, and we make the decisions right here. There's no branches, there's no corporate office. The corporate office is, these rooms over here.
Yep.
And so I would say that's one advantage that we have. The other advantage is I think we can pretty much tell whoever's calling just by the tone of their voice. I mean, we know our customers so well that it's good to have that direct relationship.
Yep, absolutely. Well, it translates to good customer service. When there's a personal relationship with them, and you have a full range of services. I mean, there isn't anything that you don't provide.
We have real-time banking, debit cards,
right.
Auto loans, commercial loans, home loans. We feel like we have kept up our technology up to date where, we don't think we have any disadvantages in that area.
Yeah, and then one of the features of your website and your online banking is actually a budget feature, which I think a lot of banks maybe don't have, and that's that's going beyond banking. That's going to helping people with their personal finance, and the tools are there for them if they'll use it.
And that can be a good thing or a bad thing. I'll tell you a funny story. You can set it up to where every time you go to the grocery store and you swipe your credit card and you spend $50 on groceries, it will automatically deduct that from the budget that you've had set up on that system. Mm-hmm. And when you go over budget, you can set it up to start sending text messages to your phone or your spouse's phone. And so it's a great tool to budget, but sometimes you go over a little bit, everybody knows about it,
And your spouse gets an email.
spouse gets an email saying, Ted spent too much money. And so, but we like it. We think it's a tool that people can utilize to manage their finances. You can run what if scenarios on
learn a little
learn
a little discipline and absolutely. Yeah,
it's good.
Yep. And there's talk about a little bit about the ownership and you said all the decisions are made here in the board. Actually, the boardroom's in here behind the safe here and tell me a little bit about not specific board members, but just the general makeup of the board. I mean, are they local people? Are they?
We have a good mix. David Mills is one of our board members. He's a former comptroller, I believe, of Alco. He's been retired from that job and is a local farmer now. Then we have Edwin Martin, who I worked for at the Kaw Valley State Bank for many years in Wamego, Kansas. And so it's good to have him out here kind of mentoring us as we try to build this bank. John McDonald is one of the minority owners of the bank. He founded Boulevard Brewing Company back in 1989. And so he's got the entrepreneurial spirit. It's good to have that, on a board of directors. And Trevor McKeeman. The McKeeman family owned a majority of the bank before we purchased it back in 2010. But Trevor's an entrepreneur himself. He's just launched a startup company called HiddenGenius.com. And so it's also good to have his input on the board as we try to, make decisions that are unique to this bank. He's a big help.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of largely still in the family.
Yeah, and Reed
Hoffman family.
Reed Hoffman. Sorry, how could I leave out Reed?
Yeah, right.
Reed's grandfather started this bank, and Reed started working here in 1949. He still comes in every single day. Yeah. He's 93 years old, and we really value his input. I mean, having been around this community,
he's seen a lot of business cycles.
He's seen a lot of it. So it's good to have Reed on board.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and he's the Hoffman family and your family. It's good to see some of that energy of the families coming back into Enterprise and share a little bit about Enterprise. I mean, I think there's a few more businesses downtown than there were a few years back. Tell me a little bit about your prognostications or observations about doing business in Enterprise.
In a lot of ways, we don't have the retail traffic that you would have in a larger community such as Abilene, but what we do have is we have a community where about everybody in town knows each other, and we try to help each other out any way we can. And when that comes to supporting our local business, we understand that we have to buy our gas at the gas station or we won't have a gas station. And so, there's that local pride, I think, is pretty prevalent in Enterprise. That's a good thing. We had a family, the Hamiltons, who purchased the old Enterprise State Bank, and they now operate as the Buggy Stop Cafe with some traditional food and bread that they bake, on site. That's been a great thing, especially having it right down the street from the bank. Down there quite a bit. Yeah. We have Kim Anderson next door, runs the R Bar, and I think she does a fantastic job. She brings in live music. She has charity events. Just runs a good shop. Of course, I mentioned the Mini Mart in town. That's ran by our mayor, Larry Jantz. Of course, there's Midco Plastics, has been here for years. And Deb Klankoff opened up the Archangel Firearms gun store that's across the street. Yeah. So we're happy to have her.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I've been in all of those businesses, and they're all good quality businesses, ran well. And I think they seem to be doing a good job. And I was visiting with the Hamiltons at the Buggy Stop, and they were saying that their lunch crowd is largely Abilene people, and so there's only 6 miles separates us, and a lot of us live and work and go in interchange between the two cities. And so when you talk about community, you talk about Abilene area or Abilene as a community, well, you can't really talk about that without Enterprise being a part of that.
Yeah, it's quicker to go from Enterprise to Abilene than it is to drive across Manhattan. We're basically part of the same community. We should be, operating as such.
That's right. That's absolutely correct. Tell us a little bit about. We just recently here 2 weekends ago was the fall festival here in Enterprise. Do you have any? I was at this year's event, and I thought it was very well done. I think there were some new additions to it that went really well. Tell us a little bit about this year's rendition and kind of where you see it going in the future.
Well, I got involved when I first moved to Enterprise 5 years ago. It was something that, they were really needing volunteers, and I decided that this would be the first thing that I would participate in. And 5 years later, I'm still, heavily involved with it.
Yeah.
But the typical format is we have a parade at noon, and then following the parade, everybody migrates to the park. We wanted to have the festival in the park because I think that's one of the assets that we have in Enterprise is that we have this beautiful park, so we want to show it off, so that's why we have the festival up there. We'll have craft vendors and food vendors and games for the kids. That goes from around noon to about 6. And as the evening comes on, we like to have a variety of different musical entertainers perform. Every year I try to find something else to delegate off as part of, so that I can do something, what I do best, I can focus more of my efforts on.
Yeah.
And so one of our employees here, Adrian Hettenbach, decided that maybe a car show would be a good addition to the festival. So she took that on last year. I think she had around 30 cars. This
Yeah.
year, her second year doing it, I think she had around 50. And so that's starting to be, and the festival goers really enjoyed having that.
Yeah.
And so that's something I think we want to continue to build on. The music, we try to throw curveballs every year and switch it up as best we can.
Seem to be able to do that pretty well.
Yeah. We don't want to be just bluegrass or
Done
just
very well.
rock or whatever. We just kind of, I guess we like just good music.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we're always looking for entertaining acts to put on stage.
Yeah.
So I think the thing that we've gotten lucky on the last 3 years is it's rained like almost every day up until the festival.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, we end up having the most beautiful 75-degree, no wind weather
Yeah.
on the festival day. That's happened 3 years in a row now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember 2 years ago, there was an extensive music lineup starting from noon and ending at 1 a.m.
Yes.
And as I remember, from about noon to 5 o'clock, it seemed like it was about 98 degrees on the stage, and
Yes.
it was and so you're finally tuning that around to where it's not as oppressive on the artists, but it's this year was I think the crowd gotten a little bigger this year.
Yeah.
I think there's there's definitely some room for food vendors and other items like that, but
Yes.
but by and large, I think it was very good. And the car show, that definitely generated a lot of activity in one part of the park that
Yeah, she does a
had been
great
kind
job
of
with
quiet
that.
earlier. So yeah,
No, but we're always looking to improve. We're always looking to
Yeah.
find ways to
Yeah.
be more effective at what we do, but we're having fun.
yeah. And there's a lot of like the rec commission here in the city.
Yeah,
we're largely
especially
involved with
Margaret Griffiths is on the rec commission, and like I said, we try to delegate certain aspects of the festival out.
Mm-hmm.
She takes on the games, and her husband Kyle do just
Yeah.
a fantastic job with that. It seems like there's 2 or 3 more things to do every year that she's involved with it,
Yeah,
and so
Yeah.
she's a very big help.
yeah. And then with any festival, by the time this airs, this will have already happened. But the arts and music festival in Abilene this weekend, it takes a lot of volunteers to put on one of those things. I mean, you really wouldn't think about it, but the day of, you really need to have quite a few people, and that can be a challenge in a small town to find those people that will consistently, provide that effort and volunteer to make
Yeah.
things happen. So, to those of you who do volunteer for those types of things, big kudos to you, and so I
If
hope
anybody
some of them
wants
are
to
watching.
volunteer
Right,
for
absolutely.
the Enterprise Fall Festival, please contact me at the bank. I will find something for you to do.
Yep, that's right. For next year. Planning for next year's probably already started. So, yeah, cool. So what else is going on in Enterprise? I don't know. There's right across the street here. There's a couple of buildings that are very historic in nature, and then a couple of vacant lots next to it. I don't know. Is there? And it's a loaded question, and I don't know how much you're allowed to say, but there are some plans to do some more things here downtown, correct?
Yeah, the whole thing with those buildings started when the owners were all here at the bank, and as they are once a month for the board meeting, and we're always looking at those buildings because they're right directly across the street, and they look like they're kind of in some disrepair. And I guess the whole thought was, gosh, we can't let any more buildings fall in town. We've
Yeah.
got enough gaps on our main street as it is. let's just find a way to preserve it and save it. And so we had some stonemasons come out and some other, architects and construction workers, and we kind of got a plan for it. And then the thought shifted to, what else can we do with those after we get them fixed? Can we have another business move in, or what can we do? And Reed is a big history buff, Reed Hoffman, and of course the temperance leader Carrie Nation back in 1903 came and smashed up the bar in town.
That's right.
And so there's not really anything out there that's really preserving her history. I mean, there's some stuff at the Natural History Museum, but there's nothing really kind of dedicated to her. So
That's right.
The idea for now, I guess, I really can't say much more than that, but they want to have maybe a museum.
Yeah, Carrie Nation plays into the
Yes, like maybe
what's going to happen over there.
A place to collect all the Carrie Nation artifacts, and maybe be a place where they want to recreate like the old saloon from when she smashed up the bar in 1903.
Right.
Again, we're still a ways off, but it's
sure
they're going to do something Carrie Nation related across the street.
Right. And for those of you who or maybe go through Enterprise or are just interested in taking a little side trip, about half a block north of here, there's a plaque on a building that says this is the saloon where Carrie Nation took her hatchet and smashed up. She called them smashers, is what she called them. She carried them in paper bags. They were rocks originally, but her actual hatchet that she used for that particular misdeed there is actually at the Dickinson County Museum, is my understanding.
Yes, the hatchet is still around.
Right, the actual hatchet is still within 8 miles of here. So that's kind of a neat little history thing. I mean, you can come over and see where she did that, and she left here and went directly to Topeka, and went to a bar that was very popular by a bunch of politicians, and tore that up too when they wouldn't enforce the prohibition laws at the time.
She went on a tear.
Yeah, she did. But that's an interesting thing that's in the works here in Enterprise. What else is going on in town that is noteworthy?
We have started a local Enterprise Economic Development Committee,
right.
Which has been very helpful to the local businesses here in town. Is just ability to continuously communicate with each other, just so that we're all on the same page. And we, the first thing that we've been working on is to promote the town a little bit. We've hired a company to design a website that highlights the assets that we have in Enterprise. It lets everybody know that, why you would choose this community over, say, living on Post at Fort Riley, or choosing, other towns to the east. We want to promote what we have to offer. And so if you look around the Chapman exit as you're coming westbound in Enterprise, you'll see a big billboard that says wyenterpriseks.org, I believe. And if you go to that website, then you can start seeing what we're trying to do.
Sure.
And so that's been a positive thing for us.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and you said the word communication, which I think, being in the chamber business, I think communication is one of the things that I hear a lot. I hear a lot of things about lots of different things, but I would say that communication, both among businesses and among communities, particularly as it comes to events and things like that, is very important to kind of get everybody on the same page. And in Abilene, it's where you've got a significant number of attractions. It's important for all the attractions to communicate what's going on, through the chamber and the CVB, and back to those who are providing services for travelers, for instance, hotels. And I hear that from the hotels. We sent so-and-so to this restaurant. We weren't aware that this restaurant wasn't open at the moment, or they'd changed their hours. And
yeah, we have to
little things like
keep
that.
Talking to each other.
Absolutely, we need to do that. So, all right. Well, is there anything else that we want to visit about? No.
No, we're happy to be on the chamber. We're happy to be on your show, and I appreciate you taking the time to come down here.
Absolutely. Well, we're here to try to help business and help get the word out about Dickinson County Bank, and we're glad to have you as a member.
Thank you, James.
Yep, and we've got a long working relationship ahead of us, don't we?
Absolutely. So, let's get it done.
All right. It'll all be good. All right. Well, this has been Abilene Means Business here on Eagle Communications Channel 2. I'm James Holland. We'll see you next time.